evening, I'd like to call to order the West Bend Community Memorial Library Board meeting for Tuesday, June 16th. I would like to call for a approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
And because of our spaciousness, if everyone could speak up. If you can hear me, I'll try and speak louder, so please try and speak loud. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The consent agenda. I call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which would be the approval of the meeting minutes from May 19th, and also the approval of the library expenditures from May 2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial reports. Joseph.
All right. So there's nothing too exciting to report. We had 2 donations and some interest income in the unrestricted money market account. That was it.
Okay, the only thing I have is in regards to, we have talked about the restricted funds being changed. So we do need a separate motion, and Amy has put that on the agenda a little bit later to give the city the authorization. Last month, we voted on moving the funds, but we were not specific on the dollar amount, and the city, in order to do the movement, needs the specific dollar. So we'll talk about that.
Deb, I'd like to do that now if at all possible. There's a different fund balance proposal that was in the packet.
Okay.
So I put this here because it was part of the fund balance report that needs to be adjusted. Okay, so I would call for a motion to rename Fund 126 Restricted Fund Balance to Outreach Operating Expense Line.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We kind of talked about it last month, so we kind of know what we're doing. Okay, if there's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now, to create the outreach restricted fund balance line, instead of renaming everything, we need to designate some funds to go into that second line within the outreach fund balance report. Does that make sense?
What are those funds for?
Those funds would just be in a fund balance line just for outreach. So that we have an operating expense line and then we have a fund balance line.
What are those, are we supposed to name or designate how much is in each one?
Yes. I'm proposing that we name it the outreach restricted fund balance and that we put $100,000 into that fund balance because we have $124,000 right now.
So the 24,000, is that then for your operating?
It would be considered undesignated fund balance, and it would go to help offset our negative balance we always carry because of the billing cycles.
And so it's operating income. Yeah.
It would be designated as operating, and the reason we're doing that is because the county doesn't pay us at the beginning of the year, the payments are made. So that account goes in the red for like the first 6 months. If we would not leave some of this in the operating fund, every time Amy would have to pay out for the outreach, she'd have to have board approval to move money from the restricted designated fund. And then after the county would pay us, we'd have to move that money back. So it's like leaving a little slush fund in there because of the way the money comes in for the outreach. Does everyone kind of understand that?
Yep.
So I call for a motion to designate $100,000 from the Outreach 128 fund balance to a new designated line entitled Outreach Restricted Fund Balance.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of said motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Next month, then, we will have, and Joe, I guess this is correct to you, then we'll have it broken out in the report. And you'll get
It should be.
the amount of money
Yeah.
that's going to each one, so the city can also follow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Amy, on this same topic, I know when I tried to get them to move the basement renovation line in the county capital fund in library fund 21 and the countywide fund 162 or 126, the basement renovation line, they said we needed to send them a resolution to get that all moved.
Right, we are not moving it yet because the bids aren't in.
Okay, so we're gonna hold
So
off
we're
on-
holding off on that until the bids come in and the project is a go.
Okay, but so, okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, but then,
Because if we move to transfer that money now, then it's like the project's a go and we don't know yet because the bids are not coming in. I was gonna give that in the recreation fund discussion, but, the bids are coming in on the 2nd of July.
all right, okay,
Okay?
sounds good.
Joseph, if the city, we really still control those funds.
Mm-hmm.
Once the city gets those bids for the actual renovation, but one of
Okay.
the things we had stipulated on here is that we have to accept the bid.
Right.
And if we don't accept the bid and we
Mhm.
move the money, then we have to try and get the money back.
Okay,
Okay, so
Okay.
that's why
All
we're
right.
holding off moving it. Once a bid comes in, if it's accepted by both the parks and the library, that, after that acceptance, then we would move the funds into the city accounts.
okay.
Any other financial questions? Public comment? Our normal public comment. Library director's report, number 6.
Hello, everyone. The reopening of the library has gone well. I'm glad to report that. We have been seeing increases in numbers for people we're serving in the building. Week by week, we're serving between, I would say, 250 to 450 people a day, depending on the day. And I'm very glad to see that. Summer reading has started as of yesterday. So we are having an online app called Beanstack, and the app is called Beanstack Tracker, and the website is Beanstack. So if you go to westbendlibrary.beanstack.com, you will see what we have been working on as far as the online program goes. We're doing reading minutes, Lego challenges, writing challenges, and adults are reading and doing reviews of books. So those are the things that we're looking at right now. We are still having performers come, and they're doing their things virtually. They're either on Zoom or on Facebook Live, and we've seen good numbers with the Zoom and Facebook Live as well. With the performers that are doing things online, they're normally letting us keep those things online for up to a week. So after the real performance, there are more views of those performances after the fact. Yes, Doug?
How do you gather your numbers for attendance?
We gather our numbers right off of Facebook Live and off of Zoom. There's analytics within those programs to get that number. A story walk has been installed at the library. It starts at the front entrance, and it goes to the path that follows into the back of the library to Patrons Park and then goes through a little bit of Patrons Park as well. It's a really neat story if you want to go check it out. The West Bend Optimist Club donated the funds and supplies for that project. So that was a great thing that we could do for summer this year that's socially distant and enjoyable for all families. I do report that the 2020 budget is delayed this year. That's why you don't see a budget in your packet. I was given the information that we will be getting emails by June 30th with our budget materials and things to start preparing the budget for 2021. I don't have any other information than that right now. I am meeting with the city administrator on Friday to get more information. I did start the Dale Carnegie course as was anticipated this month. My last session is tomorrow, so I'll have a recap of that for next month's meeting. But it has been a very good course and has given me some more confidence and education as far as that. So I appreciate you sending me to that course. Yes.
Next month, 'cause I've got a number of questions about this, but I couldn't find a brochure that I guess was handed out.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have one?
Yes, I can send you one if you would like.
If you would, please.
Sure.
Okay.
Amy, could you scan that in and just send it to me?
Mm-hmm.
Because as you described, as you said, I have learned techniques to get people talking and remembering names.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like the Carnegie course I took over 20 years ago. Has it changed?
I'm not sure.
It sounds like it. Well, and the reason I ask is that I think we approved this, or it was approved, to improve your leadership capabilities. And I guess I'm looking to see what you've learned as far as leadership, problem solving, planning, financial planning, conflict resolution, diversity management. Was any of that discussed in this class so far?
Some of that, yes.
Some of that?
Yes. Also communication and confidence, building leadership skills, all those types of things, yes.
Okay.
She's gonna report out once it's over.
All right.
She's gonna do an
Right.
update,
No, I
yeah.
realize it. I'm just asking what's going on so
Yeah.
far because I don't remember anything like that from the one I had 20 years ago. Maybe they have improved it.
Any questions for Amy? I'm just out of curiosity, you're not able to answer this. You're saying you increased to about 350 people per day. What were we at pre-virus?
Oh, that's a good question. I know we were at around 16,000 per month. So we divide that by 25. So I would say around 600, 500 to 600 a day.
Okay, so
We're starting to go up.
75%, close to 75% of pre. Okay,
Just a rough estimate.
thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Amy?
On the staff, and with the hiring process for cleaning staff and circulation staff.
Mhm.
If I'm reading this right, there's 2 people for circulation,
Yes.
and then do we need these 2 people?
Yes.
Because at this shutdown, have we learned any efficiencies or ways to improve efficiency without, and not having to hire people? Did we improve our techniques? Did we improve our procedures or anything? Or did we just continue on what we normally did?
Well, a lot of our procedures have changed. We are seeing more materials being returned, and we are having to quarantine items for 72 hours. Okay, now as far as efficiencies, I think the staff is as efficient as they can be. We are short-staffed. We have not hired everyone that had left. And these 2 people were needed in order for us to continue providing adequate service.
Well, this quarantine for 72 hours, is that mandated by state law?
Not by state law, no. It's been recommended by DPI to hold things for 72 hours.
And are all libraries doing that in the system? You know, are all the Washington County libraries?
Washington County libraries are,
No,
No, they're
2 of them.
2 of them.
It is a common time frame. We do the same thing here. I just.
No, I know it's common.
It's
I'm just,
pretty common.
common, but if we went to 48 hours, is that illegal? Is it
No.
dangerous?
Possibly.
Possibly, but we don't know. Just
Don't
like
know.
we don't know whether, you know, social distancing really works.
Correct.
But why can't you go to 48 hours? And this is what I'm getting at, you know, try to improve things, go to 48 hours. If somebody else is doing it, it must work.
One library is 48 hours, one is 24. One I have not checked
And I
with.
think, Doug, when you say it works, here's the hard part of it. So like, we're collecting a bunch of from, you know, devices which are plastic, which the last recommendation was 72 hours because it lasts longer on plastic than it does
Correct.
paper and all of that. I'm not saying every school does that either. I think the part of it is it's still the recommendation. In my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Amy, and when I think of this, the 72-hour hold is not the efficiency. Because if at some point, the 2-day hold is just, now they're sitting there for 2 days and I'm processing the books after 2 days.
No, but you get the
a
books
bubble.
moving.
You get a bubble day only because of the weekend. You actually get caught up early in the week, like we love Mondays because we can process everything from Thursday and Friday and all those types of things. Until the guidance changes, I don't know that I would change in our practice by us at this point. I gotta believe the only thing it's hurting is the ability for the patron to get the book
Material
at
checked
that
in and off
point,
their
the material.
account.
Actually, though, one of the other things that we are hurting, you had said, is the books are piling up in some of the rooms. And
Yes.
also, we only have so many book carts, say 10 or something, and those are all jam-filled because of the volume.
Yep. We're starting to get that more under control. A lot of the volume came from everything being due on June 1st. So I believe now we have caught up from that, and we do have some carts available now. It took a while to get caught up from that, don't get me wrong. And we're also pulling holds as fast as we can as well, so.
So Amy, with that, when you talk about pre-COVID and staffing and what staff are doing, there are things we're not doing because we're not having, you know, group meetings and all
Jim, could you
that.
speak up?
We're not having our group meetings regularly.
Correct.
Those things are now being taken up by people pulling holds and putting them on piles,
Correct.
processing. We're shifting our staffing there, so it's, you know, if we were providing both services, then we'd really have a staffing issue in essence. It's now that we're replacing this job over here with working on these other items at that point.
Correct. And I know we're not open full hours yet either, but those people that would have worked like the evening, they're coming in during the day to do the pulling of holds because there are a lot more holds to pull. More people are placing holds now and just coming to pick them up, and that's it. So the service has changed a little bit, and we're seeing that happen as time goes on.
Also, we are down 3 staff people, and we have 2 people out on family leave. So that's a total of 5 people.
That's a lot for the library.
The 3 people, they were laid off, right? And they chose.
They were
to-
not laid off, they chose to leave.
They chose to leave, okay.
One retired.
One
It isn't,
retired.
you know, one decided to retire and took retirement, and 2 have chosen to leave on their own
And what were the other 2?
medical leave,
Medical leave, okay.
family medical leave.
Is there a time limit on the family leave?
Yes,
And what is it?
I believe it's 12 weeks.
Are those paid leaves or unpaid?
EFMLA, it depends on what they're on leave for,
Okay.
Are the ones that we have on family leave getting paid?
partially.
How much?
Partially.
Partially.
Part of EFMLA is a partial
Correct.
pay, not, if you don't have
Part of
the
EFMLA is
accruals.
that.
Like if we don't have if you don't have the accruals, so if what, Jill and I had another baby and I took FMLA and I could use my sick time, I could use that as a full pay. If you don't have those accruals under EFMLA, it's, is it 2/3?
2/3.
Yeah.
So it's 2/3. And what did you say the length of time on those are? Different
Up to
lengths?
12
Up
weeks.
to 12 weeks, thank you.
So are there guidelines that says whether it's 9, 10, 11, or 12? What determines when it's up to?
Well, it depends on the situation again. If they can come back, then maybe it'll only be 10 weeks. But it really depends. The law says up to 12 weeks.
So if I want to milk it, I can wait 12 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have a medical reason, or if it's in the case of childcare, or you're having a baby, if I so choose to take 12 weeks and you choose to take one, that's a family choice.
That's a family
The law
choice.
provides that 12 weeks for it.
Okay.
And Amy, do we have staff who, I know we have, so all staff are now working during the day, during the library open hours, or do we have staff who are working? Because I can imagine, I could pull holds at 8 o'clock at night even though the library's closed.
Correct.
With some of these, do we have staff working like that, or are we bringing them in during the day when there's also people in the library?
Most of the time, it's when people are in the library. Librarians are coming in between 8 and 8:30, depending on what shift they're working. And we do have, everybody leaves by 5.
Do we ever use volunteers for pulling holes, or?
We did. Right now, we are not having our volunteer program run. So I'm looking at possibly reinstating that volunteer program as soon as possible.
Okay.
Why don't we have it going?
Liability.
If they volunteer,
I'm looking into, if they volunteer, what type of liability that the city has for those volunteers,
so you're starting
should
to,
something happen.
you're starting to do that now.
I am.
Possibly if we have them sign a waiver.
Possibly, but that waiver needs to be created.
Right, and approved. Any other questions for Amy regarding the director's report? If not, we will move on. Number 7, Library Board President's Report. Nothing to report for this month. We're just plugging away, right, Amy?
Yep.
Okay, number 8, Old Business A, Monarch Library System Update.
The Monarch Library System will be applying for CARES Act grant funding, and that will be intended for technology projects to help the system and librarians with technology infrastructure. We were reported on that at our last Directors Council meeting. The ILS hardware agreement with Dell has been signed, and those that hardware will be coming in by July 17th. Libraries will see an increase of about 5% for overdrive costs for next year. This was approved by the WPLC board, which is the Wisconsin Public Library Consortium. They actually take care of overdrive and the subscriptions. And then they have selectors who select materials for that collection.
So we pay them,
We pay the system who pays WPLC.
and what you're saying is that will be a $500 increase for next year?
Possibly, yes.
What are we currently paying them?
Almost $10,000.
Okay.
Well, I think in the notes you said that there was going to be a $500 increase, or you don't know yet?
We're not sure the exact number, but it's going to be about that amount.
I mean, so we will have to budget another 500?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. As of writing this report, I do not yet know who the new system director is. I don't know if that has been selected. Doug, do you know anything about
The
that?
process is still going on, and we're trying to get it resolved as quickly as we can.
Great.
One of the problems we're having is just getting everybody together so they can have a meeting, even doing it virtually.
Okay. The last thing I just want to mention is Beaver Dam is coming up to possibly join our ILS. And they are looking at their options at this time for an ILS. So we are one of those options to be joining Monarch Catalog, which would be fantastic.
That surprises me.
Mhm.
I remember when they pulled out.
Yes.
That was such a big
that
deal.
That was almost 5 years
5
ago,
years
I
or-
believe.
yeah.
I believe. So they're just investigating right now, so there is a hope that maybe they will join us.
Good. Hope so.
And that's all I have.
Any questions for Amy? On Monarch? If not, we'll move on to number 8, old business, library recreation center discussion. Okay, I asked that this be put on the agenda, and the reason I asked is the Parks Department is looking to have a MOU written about what we are looking to get out of this and what they are looking, to set up some parameters. So I guess I would like to ask Joanne, who has been on the committee, if she would take this process on to start coming up with things that we think we need to have included in the memo. Tim, I know you were on the committee, but I know you're pretty busy. So is there anybody else who'd be interested in working with Joanne? This is just coming up with what we see we should be getting out of this project.
I would.
So can I ask, when we say, so why not a contract and why an MOU? And this goes back to the question,
Tim?
Joanne,
Louder.
when we started this, that the idea that are they a tenant of ours?
The agreement was something that the city attorney is saying they don't have contracts between departments, so a memo of understanding is what they would be looking for.
And is this then considered the lease agreement? Or is this the document that, and that's where I'm struggling with, is this a lease agreement? Is it an MOU of who's doing what? There are a lot of things that have been talked about at that meeting of, how we're going to treat it. And I get it, it's under the city's umbrella versus then when, the district, rented space at, Mutual Mall. It's two different entities. Are we just replacing the word MOU from lease agreement and or contract?
Probably
Okay.
something similar to that, I would think. But one of the things that I have to throw out is in discussions with the parks, they were looking at doing things that I believe are in conflict with Chapter 43 and what our responsibility is. Because technically, the library board is responsible for the building. If you look at, even in the trustees handbook, the director is responsible for the building and everything. So we have to be real careful on how this is worded, that we don't do something that basically would not go in accordance with State Statute 43.
Right, I guess I'd like to back up a minute. I'm glad to do this, and I come up with a recommendation to bring back here and to move forward on. But I guess, Tim, I would ask you, because if you're willing to be involved in this, I would appreciate that, because you have a lot of ideas and we've talked about them already. So,
Yeah, I'll gladly do it.
If you have time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd
Okay.
gladly do it even if I can't make a meeting, looking at whatever it is at that point
Sure.
in time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some things, like when you say that, Deb, I think of what are the specific things they want to do, and do they really understand our world and what we have to, in our rules versus their rules? And then does it have to be worded that, and I don't know the specifics, but we are in charge of the building, but as part of the agreement, they are to repair. I think one of the things we talked about was landscaping at one point. Yeah, we may be required to do it, or we're in charge of it, but we're in essence subcontracting it to the Parks Department to cut the lawn. It's in the
Right.
wording then, correct?
But how can I say this? I don't believe the library can give up responsibility. And I think some of the things the park was asking for or thinking they're asking for would actually require us to turn over some of our authority, which again, per state statute 43, we can't do.
Deb, you said contracts between departments, but is the library considered a department in the city?
Yes.
We are considered, because I thought.
The library is a department, but it's different because Amy does not report into any, the city does not have control over Amy. We have control. We have
This is
control.
something that's been going on for years and years and years. And the best way to describe it to me is that it's a symbiotic relationship. We are independent of the city. We can make our own decisions. It's not real smart to make decisions that tick off the city because the city gives you funding. So you try to work together. But, and I think the point Deb is trying to make, the library has responsibility. The board and the library are independent of the city. And that's hard for the city people to always recognize and accept. And Parks Department may be coming up with things that are taking away the responsibility of the board and the library. And I don't think we want to get into a situation like that. That is what, and the other question I have is, Tim, was there a summary of all the points? I think there was a summary of all the points that were supposedly in agreement between the two.
Boy, you're asking me to think off the top of my head right now, Doug.
Okay,
Sorry.
because
we started a list and some topics, like, and again, I get in the nuts and bolts of things, like, before we would meet, I'd want to pick Deb's brain on what some of those specific things are. And part of it, I always believe some of those things can be handled by legal language and how you write it. It is weird because in any other situation, we subcontract that out or we hire said company to do it. Now we're looking like we're going to have to hire the Parks and Rec department in lieu of them paying us potential rent or whatever it is. I think we're going to have to get creative to make it work. And I think it's possible, but without getting into every little detail tonight, those are the things we're going to have to look at. I still think there needs to be a clear vision on exactly what, when, how some of those things are going to happen. Yes. But we're not ready for that. I mean, I think part of it is and Amy, you didn't really say, but
That's okay.
When did bids come due?
Bids are due July 2nd. We have a pre-bid meeting on the 24th of June.
Okay, I have a question regarding that. Do we have a total dollars that are available now to be spent?
That are committed? Yes, we have $150,000 from Parks and Rec, $150,000 from the library, and $100,000 in donations.
So that's
400,000.
400,000. Now my question becomes, what if the bid comes in at 425? What happens?
Value engineering. I'm going through right now. I don't know how many, we're redoing our high school library. Okay, so we're going from 2 to 1. And actually, I got to see part of the demo today and some of that work. And part of it is you look at certain things that you can bring that cost down.
Yes.
So that could be, I learned a lot about acoustical ceiling tiles and the potential of how you change that out and different things, right? And I think there's some potential for that. Obviously, you should do that in any case.
Yes, you
Not-
should.
Not just because we're over the dollar amount, but if all of a sudden if you read that bid and it really doesn't match and it seems high, so I think that would be the route you'd have to go. And then you get down to the picking and choosing and saying, out of this whole list of things we want to do, I'm sorry that, I don't know, I don't have, yeah, whatever, that idea right there, we're
Right.
not doing that, right? Or that's something we can add on later.
So are we sticking with this $400,000 cap?
I think, Doug, what we have to do is we have to wait and see what the bids come in, and then they're gonna come back to the board. We will look at the board, the parks will look at it. If we say this is out of the question, the whole thing may fall through if the bids are 600,000.
Yep.
So we still have one more go or say so before we even move the money
Okay.
into the city. So there's that firewall out there.
Okay.
Amy, has there been any conversation with, and I know you just said your budgets are pushed off. You know, we just had our budget conversation last night. There's a lot of unknowns, and so forth. You know, what happens when all of a sudden we start this process and Park and Rec says, oh my God, with what's happening, we can't fund X, Y, Z, or we're in that same boat. Has any of that come up or not?
They've already transferred the funds from the recreation fund,
To where?
the capital improvements line, I believe.
In the city budget.
In the city
Parks
budget.
has actually transferred the
They've
dollar
transferred the
amount.
money.
They've given it to them. The donations have been placed also in those accounts. The only money.
So I see the donations different. If I can transfer it there, I can get it out within a budget system. And that's maybe my worry is that, and maybe this is part of the larger conversation when we get to this, is at that point in time, we are committing to move forward no matter what happens with said funding in the year. And I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, and if I did, great, I wish I did, but I think we need to be open and honest with that for ourselves
Yes.
and from the Park and Rec. Not saying either of us want to not do this project, just that we're laying all the cards on the table so we understand what we're really looking for.
And that's why I will tell you, I have pushed back with the city, because I know they've gone to Joseph and said they wanted to move the money, and the city came to me and said, we want to move the money, and I said, we're not moving the money, because that is library money. Once it's moved, we, the board, have had to make our commitment to go forward with this. If we move it and the bids would come in, then we'd have to try and get that money back. I don't want to go through that,
No.
that
Yeah, that's
type of
smart.
thing.
I don't think that money can be moved without the full board approval, right?
Correct.
Correct. But what I'm saying is, the city has come and said they'd
Right.
like us to do that, and I'm just saying I don't even want to bring that up to the board at this time, because I don't think, we're not there yet.
Well, then I have another question. When do they intend to start their programs?
They have Mutual Mall until the end of the year.
I don't
Are
think
they
they're,
meeting now? Are they meeting now?
Oh, for programs?
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't
I don't think
I don't
so.
think
no,
so.
the city has not.
And that's my point. When do they plan to start having programs? Do we give the approval based on a bid, but we don't know when programs are gonna start?
I think, Doug, at that point, you're committing to the project no matter, their programming is their choice. If this space isn't done and they get kicked out of Mutual Mall on January 1, they have to be creative to figure out where they're gonna house it. I think what's gonna be needed is, when we look at the bids, or when that process is done, is what is the updated construction timeline? And I think that's something that would be nice for the entire board to know, both us and for their organization too. So we got the bids, we opened the bids, what is the new timeline? And maybe it's in some past email I have, and when is the expected completion date? I mean, we're finding things that we thought we could get that you can't get right now, and you're gonna find that in construction and in a variety of different places. I think those are some updated pieces we're gonna want to bring back here, Amy, besides just, here's the bid. And, are we accepting of the bid? Because the bid may come in and we aren't ready in July to approve, because there is some value engineering, or there's some things that need to be looked in deeper by the buildings department here or whatever else. I don't know that we potentially will be bidding or, voting on this in July. I mean, it depends on what those bid packages look like right now. So, but I think if we do get some sort of a updated construction timeline early, if you could send that out, that would be great. I would love to know it. I think a lot's gonna have to happen. The question will also become is are we gonna move forward with the building project and then still hash out all this other stuff? And I think that's realistic to do. But that's, the board and their organization have to have that comfort level that, yep, we're gonna move forward with doing this, but knowing that we still have to hash out who's doing what, all these other rules behind the scenes.
That should be done before the commitment to move forward.
I think it would be nice, Doug, and I would agree, or at least pretty darn close. I
But
just
I think-
don't know realistically, what that looks like, because I'm guessing the city attorney's gonna wanna get involved with that and bless that and say, you know, this is a legit document. We are, they are, in terms of the Park and Rec. I
But
just
see-
don't know how fast the Park and Rec wants to do this.
Tim, if we give the approval to move the money without having the understandings set, how can we move the money if the library board does not know what the expectations are and what's going to be infringing on the law?
But I think that's why Joanne and Tim are gonna sit down and come up with something that they can present back to the board. And it's gonna probably be within the next month, which is also the time frame that the bids are gonna be coming in. So I think they're gonna be working in conjunction.
But you can come up with what the library wants. Now we have to find out what Parks wants, right?
The two have to work in conjunction.
And that has to be done before,
Yeah,
that
but-
has to be agreed upon
Correct me if
before
I'm
we
wrong,
vote to move
started
money.
that.
Yes,
And the
we
city
did.
was looking at a
Yes.
draft, I keep calling it a lease agreement, because in my
Right.
mind, that's what it is, an
Yeah.
MOU, whatever, I mean, that idea that we have some of that just needs to
Yes.
be resurfaced.
Well, yes, and I guess what has happened is in the course of the last few months, I mean, the original director we started working with left, then the second person left, now that person has come back, now we have a new director. So again, you're right, it has to be resurfaced, we have to start pulling out what we
If you
had.
don't sell your house and let people move in without having financing and everything else resolved, and that's the way I'm looking at this for the board. The board can't give the approval until the agreement between, and call it whatever you want, but there's got to be an agreement between Parks and the library, of who does what to whom.
And I think maybe, Amy, it's going back and just saying, okay, here's where we were at.
Yep.
Can somebody clean up this document and get it back out there, get it in front of people's faces so they can look at it? And we may be closer than you think.
Well, we
Maybe
might.
maybe it's 3 items that Deb has an issue with, or, you know, related to this, and I have 2, and I don't know, Parks and Recs has 3, and maybe their 3 are 2 of mine. I mean,
Right.
I think there's some of those types of things that have to be figured out, and then it's really just, I see maybe both come in tandem. We're approving one and then the other at that point. I think it would be prudent of us to have Parks and Rec here when we vote on those, and a little bit of, I don't want every detail of the bid package, but I want to know what we're getting. Like, if we had to value engineer, we had to cut something out, what is it that, you know, the finished product will in essence somewhat look like? And I think that's just something so we're transparent for both groups.
Tim, I spent too much time tracking city repayments, considering loans and that were made to the library.
And it was just like, well, just let it go.
You know, don't worry about it, just let it go, and we got screwed out of money. But we didn't push it, and I'm just saying, we have to be extremely careful. I trust the city, just like they trust us. And we have to have the agreement.
I think we're all in agreement with that. When did you say the bids were coming in?
July 2nd.
Okay, July 2nd, that's a Thursday, I think.
Yes.
That is an open meeting when the bids come in, so if anybody is available, can you let us know what time and where is that gonna be, at City Hall?
I'm not sure. I have to look at
Can you
the
let the board know?
documentation.
Because those, when the bids come in, those are open meetings or open sessions.
I don't know how you guys, I don't know how you guys do those bid openings here.
I've been to one.
Yeah, I mean, it's different, I mean.
They
I'm not
open-
I'm not sure how they're doing it, especially with the social distancing right now.
Okay, yeah.
Who was they?
The city.
Well, Amy, you would be there too.
I'd be
right?
there too, yes.
Yeah, the city and the library, the Parks
And Amy,
Department.
Can you clarify who's, in essence, managing this project? Like, is it you and a Parks and Rec representative? Who is, I get it, the city bid this out, and the bids are gonna come back, like, who's running the show to make sure this all happens? I guess is the question. Maybe if
I
I'm
don't think
asking
there's,
that right.
there isn't anybody, that's why we're going through all these discussions.
Well, but somebody did your bid package, sent it out. Is that
Yes,
Parks and Rec, is
engineering.
that engineering? Okay,
Engineering.
That's what I was getting at. is
So
Engineers
engineering.
really run, engineering's running the bid process for us. They're gonna come back, open up the bids with a representative from
Yep, and Parks and Rec and us.
Library there. They're really doing that as a city department.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And,
Thank
and
you.
I think engineering, when we did the park, they also oversaw or did some of the project they, we paid the company, the architectural company to do stuff, but engineering did come out and checked on things from the city.
No different than going to our facilities department. They're managing that, not me and IT or some other department. Okay.
Amy, could you provide the background on the draft agreements, everything that we had before on the table that we talked about, and then anything else that came from Parks, and then we can take a look at that, and then maybe draft our recommendations and get feedback on it.
Yeah.
Okay. If anyone has any input, please do you want to get it, Amy, or do you want to, Joanne, do you just want it sent to you?
It's probably best to
Go through
send
Amy.
I'll send the comments to Amy, and then you can
I can relay them then.
Yeah,
forward it
Well-
to Tim and to me and to Doug.
that's a good
Oh.
idea, so we don't,
But then we can't go around between ourselves. so-
Right.
In fact,
Is it
that's
gonna be
another-
you and Tim, or the
Well,
three of you?
That's a good point, because as soon as it's
As soon
more
as
than
there's
the
three,
two
we've
of
got
us,
it,
that
do it
would
open
be.
meeting.
I would say, that's why I said we need just two. Won't even be involved,
Okay.
You actually, well, yeah, just, we'll designate to you as a subcommittee, and then you can come back and,
Yeah, we'll be
And if we
bringing
need-
it back
yeah.
to the
And
board.
if we need to have a larger conversation, then we call a special meeting and we
Sure.
put the whole board in the
Right.
room and have the conversation.
Right, yeah, we can do
Yeah.
that. We can do that. Okay.
okay, any more discussion on the rec center? If not, we'll move on to number 9, new business, outreach fund balance proposal.
Nancy Larson has submitted a request for funds to use for special collections. She is requesting up to $2,000 in case there's price changes, but there was a request in your packet. She would like to enhance her DVD series collection, her reminiscence materials, and her easy reading materials for adults. I guess I'd entertain any questions you have about that. Yes, Doug?
They're asking for 1337, and then bumping it to 2,000 for price changes or added, so that's basically a 50% increase. So why didn't we just come out and ask for 2,000?
I didn't ask her that question.
That's your responsibility, though.
Yes, it is, and that was my mistake.
Then where would this money come from?
From the fund balance that is in outreach.
Isn't there, have you spent all the budget that is available for outreach?
Not yet.
Can't this money come from those dollars that have not been spent since we've been shut down, just like other things that you've come to us and asked for? And the money doesn't have to come from a fund balance, it can come from operations, other budgets within outreach that will have an excess.
Nothing will have an excess in outreach. Nancy has
Nothing will
been,
have an excess, then how do we end up with a fund balance in outreach?
those
but
were from
fund balance is
previous
an
years.
excess.
Those were from previous years.
Amy, what do we budget for materials for outreach every year?
It's around $3,000 to $4,000.
And so that line item is spent at this point, is maybe what you're getting at, Doug?
Pardon me?
The line item of $3,000 to $4,000 for the materials line item that we put in the operational budget, that is already expended at this point in our budget? Because I think what I'm hearing you say, Doug, and I'm thinking this out loud, is this request should come to us when the $3,000 to $4,000 is gone, and we all of a sudden have identified a need after the budgeting process to buy additional materials. Is that what you're in essence saying of
No,
saying, look, there's
because there's
$3,000 there, why are you asking for $2,000 if you only spent 1,000?
Well, I can see why, I understand what she's saying here, but, you know, why didn't she just ask for the 2,000 instead of saying 1,600, and then I want to, you know, add stuff? I mean, how much do you want to spend? Are you going to spend,
She was summarizing the estimated costs that she had done on each thing.
okay, so
In
if
the-
she spends
in the outreach.
13, if she spends 1,337 as she asked for, where's the other $663 going to go? Or is she going to spend 2,000 right off the bat?
No, she will spend $1,337 right off the bat.
Okay, where will
And she's
the,
asking for an additional $600.
I think in her report, she's justifying for price changes. Things are going up because you can't get things right now.
These were estimated costs for these items at the time of writing. Those
I
can go up or down.
understand that. I understand that. I'm just looking at the extra 50%.
She wants to make sure she has, like, says, extra episodes and costs that she can get these items she's requesting. She's giving you an estimate in what I'm reading from this, but she wants to make sure she can get everything on her list. And then if there are extra episodes, or she has another request for something, she has a little more money in that budget to do so, right?
Correct.
Well, all I'm asking is stay within budget. Don't keep going into fund balance. Every time you ask for something, it's take it out of fund balance, take it out of fund balance. Aren't we gonna, why do we have a budget if we don't stick with it?
And I guess, Amy, did you look up in the outreach balance, do we have money still in the materials, or did we spend that?
We have spent about $3,000 in materials this year for outreach.
For outreach, and what was the amount budgeted?
$4,000.
So we're about we still have $1,000 to go.
Amy, which line item is that? Is that the true 4,000 line, or is it the 4123? Trying to make sure I'm reading this correctly on the budget report.
The 4123.
Okay, and then.
Oh, it's 3,700 that was already spent.
So then can you help me, what is the 4,000 one?
That's for the lease for the van.
Perfect, I was reading it backwards. That was my question of why are we asking for money out of fund balance when
I was
there's
reading it
$3,000
backwards, too.
sitting there? So that answers where I was coming from. So we really are expended at 92% of the budget at this point in time. Because of what we've seen with COVID, we've now addressed, we have some of these additional issues or additional needs. I think to Doug's point, and I think what you're saying here, Doug, is at what point do we keep going to fund balance? Or do we just say, look, you get $4,100 this year and we gotta wait till next year? Is that where we're at?
I'm
So to
just
keep
sa-
going and adding extra, because then maybe we need to really say that, or we're gonna have no fund balance
Well,
at some point.
At some
what's
point,
going
we
to-
will not
Yeah.
have fund balances. as
And
we-
we've been asked year after year of projects and things we can do to spend this money down. So this is one thing that we can do to spend that money down.
One of the other things, though, that we did vote on to spend some of this money down is we were not going to be charging the libraries for
3
the
months.
outreach service, and we voted on that. And we had possibly talked, depending on how the economy goes and the budgets go for next year, how much we're getting, we may dip into that to allow the other libraries not to utilize that money in the budget. So we have to keep that in mind also, because we did,
Okay.
last month, we talked about that,
Yes,
actually, last month.
yes.
I wonder then if, when we go into budgeting season, if we believe that, you know, the budget for materials is $4,100, but I've really, as the outreach librarian, identified I need $6,100 for the year, can we address that up front? And say, you know, instead of, you know, we spend it through, like, are we reactionary in this case, Amy, to, hey, we could really use this because of COVID or an increase in this? Or is it, we budgeted amount of materials, we're out, and I'd like to buy more instead of waiting till the new budget year, if my question is making sense?
I think we could do that. I'm not sure how I would report that in the budget, but I would have to talk to finance to see how that could be done and whether or not you would approve that.
And or even just the idea up front that, look, we think we're gonna be short this year. We've budgeted $4,000 for materials, but we really think we're gonna need $6,000 because this really isn't gonna cover. We've talked about that in other budget situations of having to, dip into that. As we build those materials, and that goes back to, are we buying these additional materials because they popped up because of need and all of a sudden people are looking for more of these materials because they can't go places and so forth for outreach? I'm trying to figure out the drive for the additional materials. Is it just we need to expand? Is it really because of what's going on? And maybe we should be dumping $4,000 of stuff in there and we need more materials.
Well, I think a lot of it is that when Nancy goes to facilities and drops things off, she's getting demand for these types of materials. And these types of materials really aren't afforded by the regular budget. So that's why she's asking for the additional funding for these materials.
Well, will there ever be a point in time when she isn't being asked for something? Are you going to be able to fill the need 6 months from now, 7 months from now? I still get back to, we've got a budget. Stick
Okay.
with the budget.
Then don't approve it. I don't agree with that, but if that's what you're saying, Doug.
Shouldn't that come from you to her instead of from the board to her?
Doug, I kind of agree, but I kind of disagree. Because I'm trying to equate this into something that makes sense.
I think I know where you're going to
The idea is we're the control of the money.
Right.
And the money's gonna sit in fund balance, and we've identified a need. If it truly was Amy's choice, she could have said yes or no, and from what I hear, she's
I would
recommending
approve
it,
it.
she would approve it. She doesn't control the purse strings, so it is us. And, and I think part of it is I don't necessarily want a fund balance at zero, but yet if we have a healthy fund balance and we have a need for materials to serve our community, then it's a good expense. What I don't wanna do is just keep dipping into this and be at zero without at some point, we gotta say, sorry, we need to keep something in fund balance for XYZ day or whatever it is.
I think at some point, what we have to do is, when we do our budgets, is do the budget with what we think we need to spend. We've been pigeonholed into doing budgets because the city tells us what amount of money they're going to give us, and we kind of pigeon it into that. Whereas a true budgeting process, again, it depends on the city you are associated with. Different cities handle their libraries differently. We are in a city that's very conservative, and they tell us what we have, so that's why we have to take the monies they give us and kind of spread it the way it goes.
In the budget strategy then becomes for a year, we're backfilling with our outreach fund 128.
Well, the other thing we could do, we could as a board decide how much do you want to spend down a fund balance?
We could,
And just spend it.
but I think,
And then, we can all sit here and we can make a projection. We can say, well, in the emergency fund, we only need this much, so let's spend everything else. And then, when the city comes back with a budget that we can't meet and we can't operate, then we say, oh, what happened? Oh, we spent the money before because we had it. We don't like to have savings to cover ourselves, because I'll tell you, next year, I don't see us or the city having the revenue that they're having this year. Possibly. But across the state's either gonna have to borrow money. They can't print it. And we aren't even looking at
well,
next year.
I would think next year outreach budget is going to get hit, and the reason I say that is because we get money for outreach from the county. County gets money from sales tax. That hasn't been coming in the way it had. Because of COVID, there's been a lot less revenue coming in. So, I agree with you, Doug. I think next year is gonna be really tough.
And that's where you look at a budget strategy, and that's been talked about at the state level, and about schools and city government and libraries or anything else. The budget strategy becomes for 1 year, we're gonna backfill with this. I think one thing for the board to consider is, do we want the request every time for each of these little items? Or is it, we're gonna say $4,000, and it's for any additional materials needed for outreach between now and the end of the budget year? And that's a preference of the board of how much little details you wanna know. Do I need to know every little thing that they're buying? I trust that the item that's on that list has a need in all of that at this point in time. It's just, nothing stops you guys from coming back next month and asking for another 2,000 and another 2,000. If we really identify we really need $4,000 for the rest of the year, I'd just like to know it. And do it in one swipe and be done. That's my belief, as long as there's a valid reason for it, or we know we need to dump some money because we have a increase in the need for our collection for outreach, we need $6,000. And maybe that's something you take back, Amy, and have a conversation with them. And so, whatever we decide today, and then it's done, and we've set our budget strategy is to provide X additional dollars to outreach for the rest of the year.
For next year for budgeting, but we still have to address this tonight. Are we gonna vote on, make a motion or something this tonight, or are we just gonna?
No, we should
That's our
address
choice.
it. We should address it. I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm not saying not address it, I'm
And
saying,
then next year say, okay, you're gonna have 6,000 or whatever.
And that's it.
And then she can't go over that, but,
I'm just thinking
Nancy
it's-
worked on this, we should address this tonight.
it's now, we should address this now, but the question is, in my mind, are we gonna get another request in 2 months for another $2,000?
Sure.
Like, I'd really like to know what we really need to make this collection right and get the stuff now and get it in people's hands, then do a little bit across the way. That's kind of my feedback, is we address this request now, but if there is truly a need for another $4,000 or $6,000, I'd really like to know it as a board member so we can address it and get those materials in people's hands.
And I agree with that, but as a teacher, I can also speak to the sense that sometimes you don't know what you're going to need or want. Tim, as a teacher, you have a budget that you have to spend before the school year even starts, and then the school year starts and you end up with X amount of students that are extra in your class that you weren't expecting. And so it's either the teacher pays for it or you go and ask, right? And either they have it or they don't. And so I think sometimes you just can't anticipate how much you're gonna want. Like, even if there's a specific group of kids that are really into graphic novels, like I had this year, and I had none. Now, I mean, I went out and bought them myself, but you're left with, like each year is different, so you don't know what you're gonna look at.
And I think you're right in that sense. I'm just trying to, and maybe this goes back to the budgeting piece of really budgeting for what we are. If we really find there's a need for $6,000 worth of additional materials, why do we need these additional materials?
Sure.
Part of me believes it's because people don't have the ability to go out and about, so they are relying more on outreach services to come in. They're reacting to the time
Yeah.
versus I'm under budget.
Yeah.
And if we're really in this time and, through the rest of this year, then maybe 2,000 isn't the right dollar amount.
Well, what
Because
would
we're
happen?
reacting to a different situation than I think to what you're saying.
Sure.
What would happen if we didn't have the fund balance? What would we do then? Would we borrow money?
No, we just wouldn't serve our community as we need to.
Correct.
Because we wouldn't have the resources for what our constituents and residents of West Bend would like. If we have the money, and she's asking just for a little contingency, extra money in that $2,000. There is a need. You look at the health departments now saying that they're gonna lock down these retirement homes, nursing homes, through the fall. So Nancy's services are really necessary right now, and I think she's serving a big need.
And if schools don't go back to normal, like we're hoping, it could be even bigger. Like there could be more families that want to use the outreach.
Well, no, outreach
No, outreach
it's designated specifically for seniors.
Oh, okay.
People
Okay.
who cannot leave,
Okay.
Yeah, this is more into the dementia, the seniors,
Got it.
those types
Okay.
of community where
Special
we
needs
go
and
to them
Got
to
it.
deliver.
Well, I agree with Karen. And you don't think I do, but I do. I think we ought to vote on it. I'll express my opinion, and let's vote on it.
I'll make the motion. I move to approve the outreach request for $2,000 of additional money from the outreach fund balance.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? My discussion is, what if there is extra money left over? Are we gonna be concerned if Nancy only spends $1,400 and there's $600 left?
She carry it over to next year then?
We're just,
No.
I would add, I don't know if, maybe I have to amend my motion to this, so I'll keep this in discussion mode at this point. To me, then it should be used for additional
Right.
materials. I think
Okay.
what Karen brought up is kind of what I was getting at, is I think there's gonna be a larger need, and maybe this is the ask with this, is after this, it's a really going back and having a conversation with that group and saying, what are the other things we really need so we can have it now? And get it now, and maybe that is another request that comes sooner than later. That's maybe the second part of all of this. But if there's additional dollars, that's the purview of Amy and that staff to spend. That's the way I read the motion maybe at this point.
Okay.
I don't know that I need to put that into a motion either, because we've given them, if it passes,
No,
it's the 2,000.
2,000.
Right.
The motion has been made to give Nancy $2,000, and that motion has been seconded. Any further discussion? If not, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Do you need in that motion to say where you're taking that from? Because we did.
Yes.
We did not.
Outreach fund balance, yes.
Okay, we did not say that for the minutes, and that's what the city needs, right?
Right.
So, Tim, would you like to make a motion that we take it out of the outreach funds?
Fund balance. I'll make a motion that it's taken from the outreach fund balance.
And I'll second that too.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Approval of adding Saturday library hours beginning June 27th. New business number B.
Yes, I put in your packet a little question answer sheet of why I want to expand hours to Saturdays. We have had good success with our hours so far as people coming into the library and using our facility. However, we have gotten some requests to expand our hours to Saturdays so that those that work during the 9 to 5 hours are able to use the library on Saturdays. This would allow patrons obviously to come in, but I think it would also help staff in that we could be able to check in items that have been in quarantine for 3 days and not have such a backup on Monday morning. I guess I'd entertain any questions or concerns at this time.
What are the other libraries in Washington County doing?
They are all having Saturday hours right now, but they are limited, I believe. I believe Slinger's the only one that has regular hours right now.
When you say regular, they've just gone to their regular schedule.
Their regular schedule.
But everybody else has got
Saturday hours.
Okay. Why not, and this is just a question, why not go to regular hours completely?
I don't have the staff yet. The staff that we're getting on board right now are going to be being trained starting Monday. And I don't have enough staff members to cover all those hours.
And that's due to the 3 that have left?
Yes.
And the 2 on leave?
Correct.
Do you have a plan to go to full hours?
Yes, I would like to return to full hours hopefully in August, but I am not sure if we'll be able to do that.
Because
As far as full hours, I was thinking, I'm sorry, I was hoping to go to full hours in August, because then we could possibly go to the next phase in our plan. And that would include full hours.
And which phase was that, 2 or 3?
3.
3.
So Amy, is the not going to full hours a staffing issue or alignment with the plan? Is it we don't have enough staff to stay open in the
It's a
evening
staffing
hours?
issue right now, to be full hours, and it does not align with the plan. However, adding Saturday hours didn't align with the plan either, because we had just said Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 in the plan. I would like to add Saturday hours if at all possible.
So after we add these 3 people that
Mm-hmm.
is referenced in here, we will be short the 2 people that are on leave, correct or not?
One of the people that we've addressed is not in the 5, because we had the cleaning person. That was not, there were 3 circulation people, were they circs? And 2 other people of the library. And then in addition, we had the cleaning lady, the cleaning person leave. So Amy is filling 2 of the 5 positions right now. And then the cleaning position is also being filled. That's a separate issue.
Well, haven't you done cross-training, as we were talking about, for a couple of years, and can't somebody else fill in on circulation? I mean, I guess I'm having a difficult time when you're saying we can't open up because we don't have enough staff. And I guess I'm drawing on my business experience. But we would be short of people, but we never shut down operations. We came up with ways of making product, shipping product, even though we were short of people. Can't you do that in the library, or is this like, I can only do one job, and if that person isn't there, that job can't be done? I mean, if we are here to serve the public, and if we are here for our patrons, and we want to give them full service, why can't we open the library and make every effort to provide them the service that they request? And I think a very simple sign on the front door might be, we may not be able to get all your requests because we are short people, but the library is open for full service.
Do you think, Amy, that the virus played a part in some of the people leaving?
Yes.
Okay, so that brought up a situation
Right.
where we might not have lost 3 at one time. And also, I know the virus has forced the library and the city to technically not fill vacant positions. So that's another thing we're dealing with. The city, we need to fill at least 2 of the positions, but we're leaving 1 open because of that. I think it's the situation that has occurred because of the coronavirus that caused us to lose the people.
I mean, I'm all for Saturday. I'm looking at, why can't we go more?
But if she's following the plan, plus they have the extra tasks of the 17-2-hour quarantine, the extra cleaning and things you're doing behind the desk and stuff like that, you can't have one person there trying to do all this and everybody else trying to do this in the back, Doug. I think this Saturday is a good step forward. And it's a learning curve, right? You got new people coming in.
Yep, we have
You
new
can't
people
just
coming
throw
in.
everybody out there.
I said this
I'm in
many
business
times.
too,
I
Doug.
wonder,
I know what it's like,
there's
so-
always a reason we can't do something. I don't ever hear, how can we do it?
I think she's trying to do it. I think the staff.
I'm
does
trying to
great
make a
job.
step forward.
Oh, I'm for Saturday. Can we go for beyond 5 o'clock?
What happens if it's overwhelming and 2 weeks later, then they're swamped and they can't keep up with everything?
Overwhelming. Have you been in the library? It's not overwhelming now. No, I'm serious. Take a look at fact.
But then we look kind of silly to jump right in instead of taking a baby step and inching our way forward and going full, head full in. and then it's too much for us to
I'm not-
handle, then we
okay,
have
I'm
to
not sa-
backtrack and say, oh, we better
Okay.
take our hours back again.
We're looking at doing Saturday because you had mentioned 3 people, you had three complaints. In a week, that's a point, in a week, that's 0.0001% of a week's attendance. Now, if we
But
want
that's all the people
to,
that
yes,
did
if
the
we
job
want to
because
have,
they knew the library
why don't we
was great.
expand? Why don't we expand to 6 o'clock? We could go to 6 o'clock, couldn't we? I mean, we closed at 5. Why not go to 6? That will give the essential people the opportunity and have Saturday. You're adding 5 more hours a week plus Saturday. Why can't we do that?
I trust Amy's judgment on how she wants to do this. If you're just, let's say you're an essential worker and you work down at Freighter, and you're gonna get off at 5, and you're gonna get back here to West Bend, are you gonna
At
really
5
wanna, I'm gonna run to the
after 6.
library because it's 10 to 6, I gotta go get my book.
Right, yeah.
Saturdays can be much more relaxed for this person who's an essential worker, who's stressed out in their job now. Let's go with your proposal Saturday and let's work through this over the next month, whatever you think and your staff are comfortable doing. Just because one library in Slinger, you said Slinger's open full-time?
They're full hours,
They're
which are
small. They're a teeny little library compared to what we are, in my opinion. She's got to staff and work through this entire building, all these patrons and all the staff and all the new precautions you have to go on. I value what's Amy's opinion on this, and we should follow what she's saying.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal to open on Saturday.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
What was it?
She made a motion to approve the Saturday plan. to
I
open.
seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So, I'm gonna jump in. So I'm trying to think of this not from the staffing side and the customer service we're trying to provide. And I get it, because you have people who work different shifts. I mean, Karen, you bring up a good point. I work in Milwaukee, I'm not gonna necessarily run back here. And maybe, Amy, you maybe don't have these statistics or these numbers today. But are there days where instead of saying we're running 9 to 5 on Wednesdays, I'll pick Wednesdays, maybe Wednesdays should be 11 to 7? And I think at some point, how do you serve a population of people who are working during the day other than Saturdays?
Yep.
I think is what I'm hearing you, the root of what you're getting at, Doug, is that, right?
Well, no,
Right?
I'm okay with Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, can't we give them even more opportunity? Like, if you had Saturday and then you had like Wednesday, 11 to 7, do more for the people than just Saturday.
And I think,
Karen,
yeah,
if you had a
it-
contract, if you had an offer for a big job, would you just say no because I don't have the people?
Right.
Or
No.
would you try to find a way to get it done?
I'd try to find a way to get it done. I think she's trying to find a way to get it done too.
No, I'm hearing why we can't do it. I'm not hearing how we can do it.
Joanne, what did you say?
Within an extra month or two, we'll be back regardless, and so it's only a month or so.
I mean,
Yeah.
Amy, is the intention that when we come to our July meeting, whatever date that is, that we would have a proposal on the table to open up the next Wednesday or the following week, full hours? I mean, I think that's part of it, and I go back to that, it's hard to pick hours, I get it, you know, we're doing return of, you know, we have 13,000 items from books to Chromebooks and everything else, and, you know, we're there till 7 some nights, and there during the day, and I'm sure there's people that can't make any of those times who make other arrangements. What I'm trying to figure out, and I get this, Amy, is trying to figure out when to staff and where. And we're trying to please everybody, and maybe we can't run all of those hours. I think that's what we really have to be clear about in July is either we're opening up completely or we need to find a way in summer, especially in my mind, for families whose parents are working to have access to the library, not just Saturday morning for 5 hours. And that's my wonder, and I get it, because those people aren't the people who are in the library providing the feedback at this time saying, Amy, it doesn't work for me, because we haven't asked, and barring somebody who's really willing to share that, that's the unknown out of this is You know, in the summer, do we typically see families coming in from 4 to 7 at night? I don't know, and I don't know we have the hard statistics to do that, but I think that's what we have to keep in the back of our mind as we look at July. You know, that's really where I'm thinking from this is I'm all for the Saturdays. How do we find ways to get the library open more? And maybe it's not till 8 o'clock at night, but for those families to come in, with it being light out as late as it is, you see families out and doing those types of things. And that's what I hope we see in July if we're not going to full open hours, because we can't staff till, you know, close every night, but we have a way to extend those hours in the evening for our families and or community members who are looking to access the library.
And I think the proposal to open maybe later a couple times and stay open later, you know, instead of opening the longer day, you'd come in at 10 or 11 and stay open in the evening. I don't know, and I don't know if you know, how many people come between 9 and 11. You know, is that the busy time? And
That is the busy time, actually, is between 9 and 11, and then 1 and 3. Those are our two heaviest times right now. We have people waiting outside the door at 9 o'clock to come in.
And Amy, is it, because I think I read somewhere that you're keeping holds for 7 days? Is that right?
Yes.
So if a book comes in on a Saturday, will it still be there the next Saturday, like if they can't get there? But that would be it then, right, for like those people that we're talking about, the population that we're talking about?
Yes.
So it's a one-shot deal, unless they can somehow figure out how to come in
Right.
during those other times.
Is 7 days the standard?
Our standard is 5. However, because of being open shortened hours, we extended it to 7.
If you
Decreased it to 5.
turn that book around faster, right?
Correct.
Why don't you do that?
well, again, the
We're
reason.
trying to give everyone the opportunity to get here.
To get, and I guess,
Oh,
so.
does it take 7 days? I get a telephone call, and I'm down there the next day getting my book.
But we just talked about, you can.
Right.
But if somebody's working.
But if somebody's working,
If they can't, and we're only gonna provide a Saturday hour because we don't have a night, that's
Right.
that whole, like,
Right.
during the night, during the week. If we can't handle those hours, and here's where,
And most
I'm gonna
people are,
throw-
oh, sorry.
I'm gonna throw this question in there, and this may throw a monkey wrench in there. Is it really our job to continue to keep voting on when the library hours are? Is that really truly the library board's job? Or at what point can we, and I don't know how to say this,
Well-
other than, at what point can we just say to Amy, you know what, Amy, if you said July 22nd, you want to open up till 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights, do it.
We said that, I brought that up last month.
Okay. And that's
you
where I was
guys-
going with this. Somebody remember
And you
that.
guys said, no, we need to come back even if we need a special meeting. So I'm open to what the board wants. If the board has the confidence in Amy, which I had said last month, I had the confidence to let the library board and staff make the decisions without the board always approving. But then the board
the board said no.
board said no, so,
And I look at it a month later of, you know, at this point, if all of a sudden we were to give that power to Amy and the staff, and it's not happening, that's the question that we need to ask. I mean, a lot has changed in the last month of what we know and how places have opened up, and I mean, we were in a very different position a month ago. I just don't want to wait till July or August to vote again when all of a sudden Amy hires these new people, they're doing a great job, and all of a sudden, you know, her and Brad just figure out that they could open up till 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night. I feel we're maybe at that point that's the true conversation that needs to happen, but no matter what, we need, in my opinion, we need to open up the library on Saturdays.
Would you call the question?
we have a motion and a second to open the library on Saturday as Amy has proposed. I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, now, Tim, we could probably address what you had said. If in 3 weeks, the world is turned upside down and the virus is gone and everybody's out there wanting to do things, do we want to just say that Amy would have the authority to change the hours.
So I'll make the motion, and I want to make sure I'm saying this right. So I move to allow the library director to increase the hours of operation for the public library up to our standard operating hours,
Without having to come to the board.
without having to come to the board. Any reduction in hours has to be approved by the board.
Okay, we
I'll
have
second that.
we have a motion.
I hope I said that right. I hope you got it, Jesse, because I don't want to repeat that one again.
It's on tape.
Right, I tried to make it
Yes,
as fast as I
yes.
could. That the library director can increase to our standard hours without board approval, but any decrease, it would need our approval.
Decrease in current hours, not our
Okay.
operating hours.
Okay.
It's a decrease in our current hours as of today.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Please, no.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. That was very good.
Well, I'm on tape, aren't I?
Yes, you are, and I heard that.
Forever.
Our next regular meeting will be July 21st. I'm assuming if we're doing social distancing, we will probably meet here again. But if things change and we can sit next to each other,
I doubt that too.
and if the library is open,
Could we do Zoom instead of this?
I'd like to be in person if we can. If everybody's okay with that.
yes, we had such fun, such interaction. It was just,
I believe we've gone back to face-to-face meetings and a social
Social
distance at the district. I believe the city
Council?
council is here, correct? Same layout, same thing, we limit people that can sit, our room looks just like this. As much as I don't mind Zoom, Doug, I actually like this. I don't necessarily like the setup in hearing part and all that, but I think this just provides a better, deeper conversation because we don't have to be online.
No.
Nothing would stop somebody from being able to call in or video conference in, correct, if they needed to and they couldn't.
And
meet.
one of the things we could do, we could have the table set around. We don't have to have 3 tiers. If you got 8 tables, you could have one person per table, and the cameras could still get that, so, okay.
I just don't like talking to back of heads.
Okay, so we'll put Doug in the front row next week.
Our next meeting, we've got that set. Joanne, is there a task list?
The only thing I have is for Tim and I to work on a recommendation on the MOU
Yes.
for the rec center and the library deal.
I also caught, just to be clear, for Amy to get a timeline of what our next steps moving forward realistically would be, to email those out. And then also, Joanne, you asked for Amy to provide background information of the steps that were taken before you guys meet.
Doug wanted the Dale Carnegie.
And, Doug wanted the Dale.
Oh, yes, and Doug
That
wants
Dale
the
Carnegie thing?
And then we'd also mention the outreach fund, and if the 2,000 will be enough, or if you think you're
Yes.
gonna need more.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah.
So we need to ask that? Amy
Well,
needs to ask?
To discuss it with the outreach group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Up on that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to State Statute Section 19.85 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibilities, this being the mid-year library director evaluation.
Can we have a 5-minute break?
It's going to ask the same question. Doug, thank you for asking it.
First of all, we need the
I'll
motion. Okay,
Okay.
we gotta move. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and I know they say we should do it individually on this, but I'm gonna make the All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Joseph, did you second that one?
Good question, Judge.
Got it.
That's what happened.
Thank you.
Brad, good thing we didn't do second.